I failed because I started to believe what everyone else said. What people don't understand about the ADHD brain, we only perform under extreme pressure, and we actually perform better under pressure.
Welcome to Growth Through Challenge, real conversations about the human side of building something. My name is Martina, and today I'm sitting with Victoria Harris. She is a registered massage therapist, certified lymphedema therapist, and a volunteer for the Chalmers Cancer Support Center in Fredericton. She works with people in some of the most vulnerable moments of their lives. She built her own practice in Fredericton, combining her background in marketing and sales with a calling that goes far beyond wellness. Victoria, welcome to Growth Through Challenge.
Thank you for having me.
So Victoria, give me the 60-second version about why did you build your own massage therapist practice and what made you start?
Well, the initial start to my career and the reason that I particularly wanted to go into lymphatic therapy was because I had found out that I had lipedema when I was about 22. And then kind of looked at ways of managing that, and then found massage therapy could be helpful. So I went into it with that in mind, and then found the actual lymphatic route of everything. And I found that so interesting. And then I had this battle of, am I going to go with sports therapy because I grew up an athlete, or am I going to go on to the more oncology side of things because something was pulling me in that direction? I had a teacher who told me that almost no one works with cancer patients because the level of training is so intense and long that people kind of avoid it. But what I heard from that is not only a challenge, but there's a lot of people going without care. And that didn't sit right with me. That's New Brunswick as a whole. The healthcare system is in great crisis. But I said, if there's a way where I can bridge that gap a little bit, I want to do that. So that set me on the way to oncology. Never looked at sports therapy again, and wanted to open a clinic that really centered itself around lymphatic therapy, because there was really nothing, and then there is nothing in New Brunswick like that.
Yeah.
And so when people will see that, they'll know, okay, there's a place that I can go. There's a place that offers help.
Wow. So what, for the listeners who doesn't really understand what lymphedema therapy is, what can you explain it in like 2-3 sentences? What exactly does it do with the body? And what's the difference?
So we treat a compromised lymphatic system. So in that case, you're working with lymphedemas, lipedemas, chronic venous insufficiencies. Often that swelling is caused by cancer, and by cancer treatments. So that is where that oncology side kind of fits into that. So with that, for treatment, we do, of course, the manual lymphatic drainage is the most common thing that people think of for therapy with that, and it is a big part of it. But some others that people don't often know that we do are compression bandaging, typically for limbs to help reduce volume. We do exercise planning specifically for the lymphatic condition that the person has, and we also do skin care, which is usually more used in your later stages of lymphedemas, where the skin is more fragile, more prone to ulcers and open wounds and things like that. So it's a wide variety of services that can help treat those conditions.
This is amazing, and New Brunswick definitely needs more of that alternative systems here for sure.
They do.
There is so much available in Europe, but when coming here, people didn't even know about anything. Even a good osteopath is rare here. And I remember I did heavy weightlifting and CrossFit in Austria, and then
really?
I always had numb arms during the whole night at one point, and that went on for like a couple months. And I always woke up a couple times like at night shaking my arms because I had no feeling anymore. And then I found an osteopath, and he said, okay, it takes me 2 sessions, probably 1, but maybe 2, and then this is all healed. And I'm like, wow, because usually you go for months. That's how we are taught, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no, if you do it right, it's usually 1 session.
Right.
And if it's like really deep, it goes up to 3 sessions, but then it's healed. And it was like that. So he did a couple of, but he gave me homework, of course, like stretching and stuff. But it was, in a week, it was gone.
Wow.
And ever since, I never had that. So there is a lot of impact this alternative healing systems can do for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciate, there are certain ER doctors here in New Brunswick that we have who are now telling patients in the emergency room, this could be treated by someone who works in bodywork, rather that's physiotherapist, massage therapist,
Okay.
anything like that. So it's nice to know that there are doctors that are backing this, what some people may call holistic health.
Yeah. And they would way more, I think, if they would have had the knowledge often, because often it's the awareness too that things like that exist.
Absolutely.
So what made you aware that this exists?
Going through school was kind of a pivotal moment. I had the teacher that had mentioned the lymphatic therapy, and that I went through the Dr. Vader Academy, which is in Austria. I studied here in Canada, but I still have the plan to visit the academy in Austria. But the school there is just incredible. They're considered the gold standard of lymphatic therapy. They're backed by LANA, and hearing about them and the work that Dr. Emil Vader had done was just incredible. And every lymphatic course and program and treatment that we look at today is all based on what his findings were. And so to go in, see that research, and to know that you can be a part of that, and then in New Brunswick to be a part of something that can close a major gap in the healthcare system and help people who think that this is just life now. I have this swelling and I'm going to live with it. And now they've found a place where maybe that's not the case. They can manage it. Then it's very rewarding. And so that was a big driver for me.
How do you bring out the communication to the people that this exists and what it does and that it actually helps them?
I've certainly had a lot of help, a lot of support from particularly oncologists. I've got some great ones that I work with at the Dr. Everett Chalmers Hospital, some in St. John, some in Moncton. And that's the other thing is I don't think people realize when you're the only lymphatic clinic in New Brunswick, of course, I have people coming from all over the province, which is a blessing for sure. And so the help from doctors has been a major point. And then, of course, working with Chalmers Cancer Support Center, they are getting the word out and working with patients there. And then social media, there's been a lot of ways where I've just tried to find the places where people are and who are looking for treatment to let them know that they have somewhere.
Okay, this is great. So you get the support from the local network, from the local associations and companies.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. So everyone is willing to help you get and to help each other, basically.
Very much so. And I think that's the key with healthcare. We can't afford to, be all in it for ourselves. And if that's the goal, then we're not going to get anywhere. And I think that a lot of times that can be why there's such a backup, maybe not in the public system, but even on the private side. Collaborative healthcare is really the answer for a lot of people. And that's why I love having that referral base between my doctors, my physiotherapists, my osteopaths. I think that that's so important and pivotal for a patient. And that's the thing is the focus needs to be on the patient, because we've gotten really good with healthcare of covering the health, but we've totally neglected the care. And that's, I think, where a lot of us are missing. It is striking the amount of patients that come into my office and they'll tell me, I don't feel like my doctor is listening. I don't feel like when I ask questions, I'm getting the right answer. No one is letting me in on my own healthcare plan. And that's why that's something I talk about a lot on my website and on my socials is you're in control of your treatment plan. You're in the driver's seat. I'm here to help you and I'm here to guide you, but I want you to be that decision maker because it's your body and nobody knows it better than you do. And I think that we get into these fields and we get these certifications and these diplomas and we think, we're in this authority position. We know all these things, and sure we do. But unless you're sitting in that body and you are that person, you're not going to fully know. And that's why you've got to ask those open-ended questions. You have to believe people when they're telling you, hey, I think something is wrong, and really investigate it for them and with them and make that focus about that person.
That's so important. That's so important. But it's the system that taught us that the doctors know everything, which they do, but still everybody is individual, right?
Absolutely.
So, so then we just feel like, oh, we don't know anything about like what's going on. But there's not much to know. Actually, it's just the basics, if you know, because I'm a certified fitness trainer too. So I understand just the basic muscles and the basic digestion system. But that helps me understand so much more and where things come from. Yeah.
I think that patients, it's not about knowing exactly the full physiology and anatomy of what's happening, but you can feel when something's not right. And that's all you need to know. You can leave the rest up to us. But the problem is where practitioners think, oh, it's all in your head. Oh, it's just this. Oh, we don't need to do that test. It's a waste of time. But when a patient is sitting there and telling you, and a lot of times having an emotional response because of chronic conditions that they've been dealing with for so long, we need to listen. There's a big difference between hearing and listening. We can hear the patient, and oftentimes we do, but we hear to respond rather than to understand and investigate.
That's so good. How do you think trust is built? how does the patient come into your room and feel like I'm going to trust it? Is it just the energy? Is it the listening, or is there more to it?
I think that those are two big parts. I think that really it's being patient with your patient. Things are going to take time. No one's going to trust you within the two treatments that you have with them. And sometimes I've had people come in where I don't even have a hands-on treatment for the first 1 or 2 sessions because it's just talking, it's just education, it's just
the
building.
You give to
right.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. And then by that time they say, okay, let's try this and walk with them slowly because it's their plan. They're in the driver's seat. It's at their pace. And you need to be able to move at the patient's pace. And I think the other big thing that I see is whether or not the practitioner is genuine. People can smell fakeness long before the treatment starts, and they know if you're just not genuine. And I think being yourself and letting the guard down yourself, the patient can tell and they know, okay, you're safe, I'm safe, their guard comes down. And until that is down, you're not going to build the trust anyway. So with that and the time and just overall patient-centered care, I think that that's the biggest trust builder.
I think it's also a huge difference that you do your own thing rather versus having a job to do. Like a lot of practitioners just do their job. They go there, have their own problems in mind, have their own things they think about, and the person is across them is just their job.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in clinics where, I've had friends who move from one clinic to the next and they call me and they say, I'm having an issue where the clinic I'm working for is saying that the patients are their patients and I can't take them and we're fighting over it. And I'm like, the patient's a person. No one owns them. They're not their patient. They're not your patient. They're a person. And we forget that. We see them as a dollar sign. I can't believe that that's happening in healthcare, even on the private side. But we forget that they are a human being and they have autonomy and should be making whatever the best decision is for their care. If that's staying at their current clinic, I want them to do that. If that's coming with me, they are more than welcome. But these are people, and we need to treat them like they are people.
And when you work with their bodies, and you mentioned earlier, you feel the stress and the tension in their muscles and in their bodies. What does that teach you about people and their ambition? What ambition does to people, what stress does to people, and what the outside environment does to their inside body?
I think it's something we don't recognize until it's almost at a chronic state where we're in pain. So if I sit 20 minutes, for example, with my legs crossed and bent at the knee, it only takes 20 minutes for that hamstring muscle on the back of the leg to shorten in length to be a long-term effect. I love what I call like the 20-20 rule. It takes the 20 minutes for it to have a permanent effect, but it's 20 seconds of stretching is what research shows to have a better lengthening effect. So minimum of 20-second stretching. But yeah, I've noticed the kind of stress response in myself and then noticing it with other people. And I think too that when you can relate your own experiences to patient experiences, it makes you a better practitioner because you get it. You understand.
So even when they're totally healthy, they can do that and then see what happens, because it'll always impact them in some way.
Absolutely. There's been studies showing that it reduces fatigue. It helps to detox the lymph system by moving it through and just stimulating that lymphatic system. People often report better quality of sleep, less digestive trouble, things like that. We do like visceral manipulation, lymphatic work on the digestive system. And so that's the other thing. People ask me, well, do you just treat arms? Do you just treat legs? It's a full body treatment depending on, where you want to work. We can treat anywhere. And so that's something I think that kind of not deters people, but they're not sure. Oh, can I go for this if it's just here? And absolutely.
It might even help with brain fog.
And some people report that too.
Okay. That's worth trying, really.
It is.
Because I think brain fog is so common. Do you also work with patients, not only physically, but also psychologically? Like to include, like ask them, do they have stress? Where do they have stress? Are they like, do you include that mental component as well?
We definitely ask those questions. We go within what's still in our scope of practice. So if we, suspect maybe there's more to it, we can, of course, refer to someone who can refer out to psych if it's needed. But just in terms of stress, we can say, okay, even in the massage side of things, it seems like the stress is being held here. How do we decrease that sympathetic response to help that body let that go? And so in that regard, we can play a role in decreasing stress for sure.
Okay.
And one thing not a lot of people know is, particularly with lymphedema, if you can catch it at stage 1, it's actually spontaneously reversible. So what I like to see is the second that patient comes out of surgery for cancer or that radiation therapy and they're cleared for treatment, we get them in. Because if we can start it immediately and retrain the system to work in the way that we want it to, we can catch it before it even starts, or catch it at that stage 1 before it moves to that permanent stage 2.
Okay. That's very important to know.
Very.
Yes. So when you say people are like, when you say your experts are booked out in advance, like 6 months up in advance, are you thinking of expanding your team, increasing the practice?
Yes, so I'm actually hiring another practitioner currently. I haven't put an official formal job ad out, just kind of still organizing things, but I see the need and things have grown so dramatically in our first quarter. So I definitely want to be able to serve patients as quickly as possible and with the best level of care possible. And that's the thing, when you're constantly focused on the patient, then everything just falls into place. You're able to think, okay, how can we make it better for them, bring more people in, and just everything naturally grows. So that's the next step for Bethesda Lymphatic Clinic.
Okay, great. Do you ever feel guilty taking a break?
All the time. I also have ADHD, and so I think that there's a lot of guilt with taking breaks anyway with that. When you're taking a break, you're constantly thinking, oh, I could be doing that thing.
Oh, really?
It's so tough, eh? And so, yeah, it's definitely a real thing, but I've learned that it's the break that refuels that next move. And so if you keep trying to pour from an empty cup, you're never going to give the quality of service to your patient or your customer or your client that they deserve. And so I've learned to be able to schedule the time at a time where it's convenient for everybody involved, but make it count. I think a lot of times we think of rest as we have to do nothing and sit there. And for some people, that absolutely may be what you need. But maybe the next week, what you need is to spend time out in nature or to spend time with your family. And I think looking and seeing, okay, which part of my life needs that fill is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And during building all of this from scratch, because it's new here and it's unique here, what was the biggest challenge you've been through, and the challenge nobody taught you about and nobody warned you about?
When I was 17, when I was 16, I was told by my biology teacher at the time, you should go into the advanced class next year because you're going to be bored. I had a high 90 and they convinced me to do it. And I said, okay. So I get to that biology class. And the second I walked through that door, everyone in the class said, she must be lost. She shouldn't be here. There's no way she's in this class.
Okay.
Because I was known as the one that wasn't super great at math. And so math and science were so closely related. And a couple of my friends that were in there knew that my grades in other subjects maybe weren't that great. But I was really good in health sciences. And so at that time, I had the 98 in the previous class. I go into this class and I almost fail it, which is ridiculous. But I look back and I realize I failed because I started to believe what everyone else said. Oh. And then the next year I went into another science class that before I was doing really well in, and I had a teacher tell me, you know, you shouldn't really go into probably healthcare because you'll never make it. At that time, I wanted to do something in respiratory therapy. And they basically said, you know, it's probably a waste of your time. And for years, I believed that. And then later on, I realized, oh my goodness, I have ADHD. Completely changed the way that I learned things, went to college, graduated top of my class with distinction, ended up tutoring other students in anatomy. And then now, you know, things have grown to the level that they are and basically prove all those people wrong. So I went from being the kind of person who believed what people said about me and that was how I lived my life. And now the second someone says, oh, you can't do that, it gives me this drive to do it 10 times.
Oh, I love that. So what was the moment you realized that you were not good because you adapted all the other ones' opinions? When did you realize?
I was kind of, I didn't go back to school because I remember going into a post-secondary institution for an interview, and I brought my dad with me, and this was a health science course that I really wanted to take, and they said, like you just wouldn't probably get in. There's just no chance. And so I let it go, and then for years I just kept thinking, there's got to be some kind of a way here. And I realized that when I was studying for these tests, I did what my teachers told me to do. They said, make sure you study weeks before the exam, and that way you've had all this time. Mm-hmm. But what people don't understand about the ADHD brain is we actually perform better under pressure. Oh. And so there are students who are working underneath the typical level, and parents are going, oh my gosh, like I'm stressed. You've got 2 days for this test and you're studying. What are you doing? But the brain's not ready yet. It's under this pressure.
A lot.
Yeah. And I had someone explain that to me, and I thought that's incredible. And so I've noticed in myself that I only drive to do the thing when it's urgent. And so I had a board exam for becoming a massage therapist, and I studied, my car was stolen 2 days before the exam. All my books were in it. My laptop was in it, all my notes, everything. And I thought, here we go. And so I studied 12 hours before my provincial board exam. Mm-hmm. 65 people wrote the exam that year, if I'm not mistaken, and I was one of 10 who passed. So what may sound very irresponsible to somebody, why would you do that to yourself? My brain was like, okay, you better get it done in these 12 hours or we're not getting it done at all. And so it absorbs very well. And so it's different, but it works for me. And understanding, I think, what your own work mode and your tools that you can use are is really where you're going to see the shift in your mindset and realize it's not that I can't do the thing. Yeah. I just have to do it a little bit differently than other people.
I love that. So what about the certainty? Do you also work with certainty? Because when you say you only have 12 hours, you better get it done. Some other people might be in the same boat, but they are like still doubting a little bit. And if I get it done, I know it, but then I'm under pressure and I might not do it. Did you have the certainty? I know I get it done and I will pass it.
Pretty well. Yeah. Okay. I think I had a background in sales. And so it's kind of do or die. It's results oriented. And I think that working under pressure, that's why I did so well in sales, is because that was my drive. And my mom's the same way. And so I've watched her over the years and I'm thinking like, my gosh, she seems so stressed, but her performance was unbelievable and still is. And people say to her all the time, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, yep, it makes sense to me. Yeah. It's this high pressure because it's going to get done, because the only way out is to hit the ground running. And I think that's the thing people think about entrepreneurship. They think an entrepreneur is somebody who owns a business or starts a business. But what I've learned is an entrepreneur is someone who can jump off a cliff and build a plane on the way down.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's
and know
what she does.
That he or she will be safe.
Absolutely.
On the way down.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's a certainty. When I remember when I applied for a university, and it was a private university back then, still publicly offered, but they only took 50 people out of 400 applicants. And it was pretty new and it was well known, so everyone wanted to get in. And I didn't have a backup plan. I was applying for that university and they had an application process to go through, and the last, a test, and the last was an introduction round and getting to know her or the applicant. And people asked me, what's your plan B if you don't get in? And I'm like, I don't have one, because I will get in. Because I wanted that, and I knew I get it because I knew this was the right thing for me.
Absolutely.
So, and I got in.
Good.
I had no backup plan. That was the same with the job, my first job. I knew this is the job for me, and this is 100% my passion to do that job. And also, they were very particular in taking certain people, and it was a highly paid career and management job. And people were also asking me, so many applicants, how do you think, what's your backup plan? How many applications have you written? And I said, none. I said, only this one, because this is the job I want, and I got it.
Exactly. And I think that's a fear a lot of people have, that, it's responsible to have a backup plan. But if you really make one, then you're going to think about it, and that will tell your brain, well, I don't believe that I could do the other thing. Yeah. So I'm making sure that I have something. But if you were all in on that thing and there's no other option, failure is not an option.
Exactly.
And so it drives you to be able to conquer that thing.
Yeah. But I think that's also because I'm the right personality type. So I'm I risk it, and I know I'm going to get it. But if you are more like calculative and you need the data and facts, you're probably more certain when you have the backup plan. So that's just how my personality works, and yours.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so what has all that entrepreneurship taught you about your own personality?
Other than, learning that I work well in kind of fast-paced, under pressure environments, it's taught me a lot about people have this thing where they say, I'm self-made or I did it all on my own. And I can guarantee you there's not an entrepreneur in the world who's telling the truth when they say that. Not one.
Why?
I've learned, first of all, it started honestly with my mom. She just kind of pushed me in a good way to really start. At the time that I had made the decision to start a business, I had a very close family member pass away. My dad went into the hospital with a stroke. And I just knew I had to get out of where I was. And I put in a notice and I quit where I was. And I had no backup plan, just like you say. I had no plan at all. And people said, where are you going? And I said, I don't know. And I wasn't lying. I had no idea. Within a month, I had a full business plan and everything was set. And it looks from the outside looking in like, wow, she did a lot of work in 1 month.
Wow.
The amount of times my mom had to, that I would say to her, I don't think this is the right move. I don't think I can do it. And she said, if anyone can do it, it's you. Yes, you can. And she said, if you ever have this feeling again where you're wondering, can I do it? Tell me, and I will remind you that you can. And between her, my whole family, when I got my clinic space, my entire family came in and painted that space.
Wow.
My partner put every bit of furniture together, brought everything into the space. Just really, I didn't do anything. And a lot of people look and they think, oh, you built this thing. But between the referrals from other people and the marketing of, teaming up with other organizations and the support from family and even the people that told me I couldn't do it, I owe them a big thank you. Because between all of that, that's the big driver. And the real thing that was the number one thing that made it all work out was I prayed a lot.
Okay.
I prayed a lot. And not a lot of people know this, but if you look at the logo of the Bethesda logo, it's actually a person praying. It's very subtle, but it's in there. And I wanted to include that because so much prayer went into starting everything. I don't think it's, looking back, it's impossible to start a business in a month. It's ridiculous. But it's because I wasn't the one in control. And I'm thankful for that. And that's the thing. It's far from, I had a pastor talk about this a few Sundays ago. It's far from self-made because you're not the one in control. You're not the one doing the work. And it's very true.
Okay. And you had all the support.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing this a lot from entrepreneurs too. Without that person or without that family or without that support, they wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm really glad you got all the support, and it's so powerful. Okay, so when you think back about all the experiences you had, the support you had, what is the number one advice for you want to give out to the listener in building something on their own?
My number one piece of advice is, and this is just the truth for me, and I promised myself that I wouldn't shy away from talking about it, is putting God first. That was the pivotal thing for me. And for me, nothing would have worked out if I hadn't done that. Not a single piece of it. The other major thing for me, the shift was going from believing the negative things everyone said about me to taking it and using it as motivation to prove everybody wrong. There's this shift where you go from being sad about all these things that people are saying and you start to believe it, to it making you angry and therefore driving you to do the exact opposite. And I remember sitting in a room with someone and they were absolutely tearing me down. And I was going through the most stressful moments of my life and I'm crying and it was so humiliating. I can't think of a more humiliating moment in my life. And that was the moment that drove everything for me. I look back and that was the moment that everything shifted. And now I'm so thankful for that terrible moment. What was absolute terror in the moment, I look back and say that is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So if you're going through the thing where you're thinking, this is awful, this is humiliating, I can't believe I'm being put down to the level that I am, that could be your moment. And so unless we think about it in that positive way, we might miss it.
Wow. I love that. That's so encouraging. There's one more question I'm very interested in. When you say praying to God, isn't this a little bit like hoping for the better, hoping for the cure, rather than having the certainty? For example, I'm ordering from the universe this or that, and I have the certainty that I get this done or that this is working out. So there's two different approaches to that. What's your opinion to that?
For me, it's a little bit of both. So for me personally, like, I'm a Christian, and so hope is a big part of course, what we believe. We hope in all things, and we, have hope that things are going to work out. But also there is kind of a bit of certainty because we have to have faith with that hope. And so having faith is, for me, I used to pray for things and I'd have that bit of doubt, like, is God really going to do that? And I think we all still have that. Yeah. And there's this one story I always go back to in the Bible of this man who admitted to Jesus, I don't really have, I have doubts. And he says, help my unbelief. And I think that's the big thing, is admitting, okay, maybe I have a little bit of doubt here. But what I'm certain about is not that it's going to go exactly in the way that I had hoped or exactly in the way that I've planned it, but I'm certain that he's going to work it out. I'm certain that there's going to be a way made for all things to be exactly as they are. I didn't plan for a lot of things to go the way that they did, of course, and no one does. But thankfully, I'm not in control, and regardless of how I plan them, they've always worked out.
Wow. Victoria, thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and all your insights, and I loved listening to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Victoria, to the person who thrives when someone pokes on her. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
All of my guests built something real through something hard. And that story, it belongs to you now. Take it, use it, grow through it. If this conversation moved you, share it with one person who needs it today. And subscribe, because the next story is already waiting for you.